Joining me now from CERAWeek, Jarrod Agen, Executive Director of the National Energy Dominance Council. Jarrod, it's great to speak with you. Thank you for taking the time. Energy dominance has existed for just over a year. Main mission to advise the president on U.S. energy production, permitting, ensuring Americans have access to affordable energy. Given the war in Iran, how are you advising the president right now?
Well, Morgan, thanks for having me, and congratulations on the show, and welcome to CERAWeek. I'm here with a few thousand of my closest energy friends, and we're the center of the energy universe right now. So this is exciting to be with you from here. You know, what's happening right now, and it's just a lot of the dialogue that we're having with the team that's on the ground here and the various companies, they're looking at the long-term game. They understand that what's happening now is short-term, but really they're trying to invest long-term, and they know that the U.S. has the resources to supply the U.S. and a lot of our allies with oil and gas and critical minerals. And so a lot of what people are asking us about are, is the president going to continue to do what he's been doing over the first year, which is streamlining permitting, which is getting investment back into the U.S. when it comes to oil and gas. It's unleashing the potential of places like Alaska. And the other big topic that's coming up a lot is Venezuela. And so what a lot of the conversations are is, how can we drive from the Western Hemisphere, in Alaska, in the Gulf of America, in Venezuela, so that we don't have to go into any of these choke points all around the world, that we can really drive American energy dominance like the president has done. The president has pushed permitting, Trump speed. He wants projects done under his term. We're getting those projects done, and he is unleashing the potential of America, and we're hearing that from our allies even more than ever this week.
Yeah, and I wanted to get into all of that into more detail, but first, since that is probably more of a medium to longer term scenario, a lot of focus right now on whether we could get a deal here with Iran. Can we? What will it take?
Well, the president came out this morning with the truth on the conversations he's having. What you've seen is oil is now down in the 80s right now, and so it dropped significantly today. He's going to continue to have those dialogue, and I think everyone is optimistic with the moves that the president has made. I think he is the master negotiator. He knows that, and you look at what the moves he's made here in the U.S., there's a lot of things happening to unleash domestic supply, and so for the first time in a long time, he used his authority, President Trump did, so that we can get oil drilling and production off the coast of California. That is huge. He also announced a new refinery that's going to be built in Texas, the first refinery in Texas in the last 50 years. That is huge. He announced a Jones Act waiver. Again, massive, from getting stuff from port to port here in the U.S. There's more in the works, but he's making moves here in the U.S. to unleash the potential of the U.S., and so that while he's doing the negotiations and having his talks with our allies overseas, that we're not losing any steps here in the U.S. when it comes to energy dominance.
Now, you bring up a key point here, and that is the fact that West Texas Intermediate, WTI, has stayed below triple digits, at least on the close, and is, to your point, now trading below $90 a barrel. But the spread with the global benchmark Brent, that has widened here. Refined product prices, those have continued to surge. Heating oil, diesel, jet fuel, even gasoline at the pipe. How do you bring those prices down, especially when they're less tied to American oil and more tied to Brent?
Well, I think what the president is doing is he is sending the right messages to the world. He is telling people that this is going to be short term. He is telling people that it's going to be, that he is on top of it, and he's going to take care of the situation. The president has been right since he's been in office. He has called these shots right. He has put energy at the center of his foreign policy, and he's been proven right again and again and again. He will be proven right again here. We were just in Japan. We had a great trip in Japan where we were meeting with the Japanese Energy Administration. They came to the U.S. just a few days later, but they're looking at us and they're saying, hey, we get a large percentage of our oil out of the Middle East. Now they're looking to us and saying, what can we do from the U.S.? Can we unleash Alaska? Can we get more out of the Gulf of America? And so all you're seeing is the president, again, using his master negotiation skills that he is signing up great deals that are going to be great for America, and we're going to continue to do that this week in CERAWeek.
How quickly can the U.S. meet those production demands, whether it's on the oil side for our allies in places like Asia, or whether it's on the LNG side, because that's been the other sort of key commodity energy price surge, spike, whatever you want to call it, that we've seen given what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah. Well, we've been talking to all the big companies. Both last week, we met a lot of them in person in D.C. We've talked to a lot of them here. They are ramping up quickly. On the LNG side, we are able to ramp up very fast. We had already been ramping up. We heard from some of our allies in Europe that they need to buy more LNG quickly. And so we've connected them with great U.S. companies that are ramping up their production. On the LNG side, we were already moving at full steam, at Trump speed, to get more LNG exports. And so all of that is continuing to happen. And we'll get more out of the Gulf of America. We're having conversations this week about unleashing LNG out of Alaska, which will help all the Asian markets. They are very interested in that. That gets the timeline down to about 8 days to get LNG from Alaska over to Asia, so super interested in that. When it comes to oil, one of the great things, I mentioned that move that the president did with Sable Offshore. He made a move just a couple weeks ago to unleash Sable offshore drilling. They're already producing. They're producing 5,000 barrels a day that's getting refined and pushed into California. California was getting their oil from foreign sources. Now California is getting 5,000 barrels a day. So you're seeing immediate moves that the president is making that's unleashing both LNG and oil on the market.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the refining piece of this too, because you mentioned this facility in Brownsville that's getting the green light to be built and developed here. A lot of the infrastructure we do have around refining in the U.S. predates this fracking revolution. It requires a more sour, heavier grade of crude, at least to be blended apart, versus what's coming out of American shale. So how are you thinking about the refining infrastructure piece of this, especially when we do see products like jet fuel and diesel surging right now?
Yeah, well, I think this is what the trip we took to Venezuela is really helpful here, because we're trying to get more refineries into the U.S. There's refineries in California, some in the Gulf of America that are obviously focused on U.S. crude. The new one in Brownsville is going to be specifically focused on U.S. crude. But what we've heard from companies in Texas and Louisiana, all along the Gulf, is they are geared up for that heavy Venezuela crude. They know how to refine it. They want more in the system. They're willing to build more manufacturing, more refineries. They want more jobs, but they want that flow from Venezuela up through the Gulf of America, and they're willing to invest on new refineries to help with the Venezuela crude. And I think that's going to be obviously great for America. It's great for Venezuela too, but it just again shows the moves the president is making are helping both in the U.S. and Venezuela, and it's going to help the overall energy market, certainly the supply chain around crude in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, we've talked about crude, we've talked about natural gas. I wonder how closely you're watching things like, for example, fertilizer prices, which I know have also been impacted by the Strait of Hormuz and what we're seeing with Iran right now, given the fact that we are in the key planting season. You also mentioned critical minerals too. How are you thinking about the broader commodity complex and what can be brought online and how quickly?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. There's the team at the White House that's looking at all of these things, certainly on fertilizer. That was part of the Jones Act waiver that we announced last week. Fertilizer was included there. On critical minerals, so I mean, the big part of the conversation that we're having here is you don't want any one country that can serve as a choke point in the supply chain of critical minerals. And so what we've done, Ex-Im Bank announced a huge project, Project Vault. It's $12 billion that they're investing into critical minerals. It's the biggest Ex-Im Bank deal by double ever done before. The president announced that, and then the very next day, Secretary Rubio had a full summit, a ministerial of critical minerals. Ministers from all over the world came, and all of them are signing up into this global alliance where we can share not just the mining, the critical mineral aspects, but the refining aspect of it as well, because all of us need kind of to work together to close the gap that we might have so that we, in the West can be a leader in critical minerals. And it's essential to everything we deal with. And you've seen real money and real dollars go into it, but now you're seeing real global partnerships going into it so that the supply chains are as solid as possible. This was a big part of our trip to Japan as well, because we met with Australia and New Zealand and the countries in the Indo-Pacific about how do we streamline the critical mineral supply chains so that we're all working together to ensure that no country can cut us off.
Well, Jarrod Agen, Executive Director of the National Energy Dominance Council, thank you so much for joining me from CERAWeek. Appreciate it.